All right, so the big news this afternoon is that the ANC has begun to act against party members charged with serious crimes. And I'm joined now by Higher Education, Science and Technology Minister Dr. Blade Nzimande to discuss this breaking news, but also the challenges faced by the higher education sector. And Nzimande is an ANC NEC member. Of course, he's also the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party. Minister, thank you so much for your time. I would just like your reaction. I know that you're a member of the NEC, but your reaction to the news that those suspension letters are going out from today for people who refuse to step aside in the ANC, even though they've been charged with serious crimes.
Good evening, Sally, to you and to your viewers and listeners. I would just like maybe to clarify that much as I am a member of the National Executive Committee, I can't speak on behalf of the ANC. I can speak as SACP by saying that the actions that are being taken by the ANC are matters that belong to the ANC. But what we welcome as the SACP is the decisiveness of the ANC in implementing its own resolutions, especially those dealing with corruption and factionalism. Because all these things, if the ANC doesn't deal with them, it does affect us as allies. And also it leads to a situation where the ANC as the governing party begins to lose confidence amongst voters as well as, of course, amongst its own members. So we welcome these actions, but we respect that these are steps that are being taken by the ANC, because all South Africans actually should be uniting against corruption, irrespective of where they are. If the ANC as the governing party takes such actions, then it should be supported. For us as an ally of the ANC, we do support that without by any means interfering in the internal processes of the ANC.
I understand that. How does the SACP feel as a member of the tripartite alliance? How do you feel that it's taken your partner so long to galvanize the step-aside rule? I mean, it's been a resolution, I think, for 8 years. Have you, as the SACP, felt frustrated because it does not make the party or the alliance look good?
Well, as I say, Sally, you know, this is a matter for the African National Congress. And we'll respect the processes, internal procedures that the ANC is actually taking. Of course, if there is delay in the ANC implementing its own, it's not good insofar as these matters affect the allies as well, you know. But also we are under no illusion about the difficulties that are actually facing the ANC in dealing with such matters. What we have said as the SACP, we have rallied our members and our base to say we have to support the unity of the ANC, actions that are being taken to foster unity, to fight against corruption, and to fight against factionalism. Because it is in the deepest interest of all of us as the alliance that we have a united ANC that actually is at the head of the alliance as a whole. So we only hope that the ANC will come out stronger out of this. But we are under no illusion that it's not an easy thing facing any other organization. But at the very least, what we appreciate is that the ANC is taking these actions and is fairly transparent about it. So that is very important and good for the country if the ANC as the governing party behaves that way.
What does the Communist Party do in a situation where they feel that one member of the alliance is not upholding the values that are so important? Minister, are you back?
Sally, sorry, I didn't hear you. Someone was talking as you were also asking me the question, and his and her voice was much louder than yours. Can you say that again?
I certainly can, and I thought I was always the loudest mouse in the room. But what I wanted to...
No, I think that the machine is closer to my ears. Yeah.
No, I hear you. I wanted to understand a little bit more about the power dynamics in the alliance, because every time we get closer to election, you know, Cosatu sort of says, oh, well, if you want our support, ANC, you better look after our workers. What power does the SACP have to push the ANC if they're not acting quickly enough? Because one of the biggest criticisms of the ANC, and something that the President himself faced at the State Capture Commission, is why did it take you so long to start acting against corruption, against clear red flags of corruption? Surely as an alliance party, there is a role to play as the SACP in pushing the ANC, in saying, come on, why haven't you done more?
Well, I suppose, Sally, that question really cannot be said in relation to us as the SACP. Insofar as fighting corruption, we've been very principled. We've been very vocal, not only just vocal. We've also had marches, we've had demonstrations on our own, and together with COSATU sometimes, in the fight against corruption. So the SACP there, we have really played a very important role. For instance, we were the first political party, if not the first organization for that matter, to call for a commission of inquiry into state capture, apart from the fact that that whole formulation of state capture was actually the SACP's formulation of what we describe as corporate capture of the state. So we have really been in the forefront of this. We were amongst those who actually at some stage called for President Zuma to step down, even before anybody else in the alliance, because we had actually realized that in order to be able to move forward, you needed a change in the leadership of government. So insofar as the SACP, we have actually pushed. Of course, we are in an alliance. We are an independent party, but we are in an alliance, you know, with the other organizations. The alliance has got its own dynamics. It's got structures that are set up to actually deal with common issues and common problems. You know, we have summits, we have got the secretariat of the alliance that meets fairly regularly. Of course, it does not mean that when we meet, what we say as the SACP is always accepted. But in some instances, the ANC does listen. The bigger challenge that we have is that the alliance is less functional at subnational level. It's much better, it's not perfect at national level. But at the level of provinces and the level of the regions and the districts, we really do have challenges. Because, for instance, we've been saying, as the SACP, now we've agreed in principle as the alliance, we need to reconfigure the alliance. What do we mean by that? We need the alliance to function in a manner that suits the challenges and conditions of today.
Yeah, you make such an excellent point. Sorry to jump.
Of today. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just saying you're making an excellent point, really,
yes,
because
Sally.
You've got such a principled stand against corruption as the SACP, but your hands were quite tied for a long time, despite your calls against corruption. So what is the alliance still worth it in 2021?
The alliance is very much worth it. In fact, it's becoming even more relevant, you know, that we unite ourselves as we face some of these challenges. Because let's not fool ourselves. Some of the things that have been happening in the ANC and in the alliance has led to some of our own supporters to begin to lose confidence. Our performance in the last local government elections in 2016 sent a very serious message to us that we have to sort our things and get our act together. So the alliance still remains very important. It's important that organized workers in a big formation like COSATU, they support the ANC. That our activists of the Communist Party actually go out and campaign and support the ANC in elections. But what we are saying is that part of reconfiguration and changing is to say we need to listen to each other better. We need to engage each other better, even in discussing common economic strategies or policies. We may not agree on everything 100%, but what we agree upon, we actually need to implement that. And that is very important for us because our big Achilles heel at the moment is the economy.
Yeah.
Our economy actually since 1994, it was growing between 1996 and the early 2000s, but it was losing jobs. So we have never really been able to tackle effectively the issue of job creation. We've done well in other instances. The social grants have helped us greatly. You know, supporting education for poor students has helped us greatly to minimize the impact of poverty. But turning around the economy is the single biggest challenge that we face. We need to listen to each other better. That is why, on our side as the SACP, we say, what is contributing also to a worsening economic situation is corruption, which also some of it is within our own ranks as the alliance. But also what is worsening the economy is that we don't want economic measures that we call neoliberal, that actually tend to focus more on creating conditions for business to do business, but often at the expense of creating jobs and actually giving people ways and means for sustainable livelihood. Those are issues that we continue to debate in the alliance.
As a communist in 2021 in South Africa, do you have a problem with the public-private partnerships, with the private sector increasingly working with government, because government doesn't have the money, doesn't have the capacity, which may ultimately see private equity partners in SAA, private equity partners coming into some of our ailing state-owned enterprises? Does a communist such as yourself have a problem with that?
Precisely because we are communists, we understand we are in a mixed economy, Sally. It doesn't mean we accept the existence of the capitalist class, but we accept the reality that we are a mixed economy and we need to act as such. Our focus is that even where you have got public-private partnerships, the state must set the agenda. Because the state, its main aim is to change the conditions of the majority of the people for the better. The role of the private sector is only one, is to make money for itself, is actually to make profits. So if you get into a partnership and you allow the private sector to set the agenda, you are never going to allow. That's why we have problems with a policy like GEAR, because we felt that it just gave a leeway to the private sector to do as it wishes. That's why we are where we are.
Of course,
with such high levels of unemployment.
Sure, but if the private sector is bringing the money, how much leverage does government have?
Government has actually got a lot of leverage in even shaping how that private sector brings in money. We have done this as the state. The fact that we have legalized trade unions, the right to strike is enshrined in the Constitution, were things that were very important to protect the working class against rampant exploitation. So the state does act even if the private sector is actually making money. But also you need to direct where and how that private sector makes money. You know, Sadi, what we are even talking about are not even communist measures. Take what President Biden is doing in the United States at the moment. He said $2 trillion for infrastructure, rebuild schools, build bridges, fix our roads and everything. And he said, how am I going to get this money? I'm going to raise the taxes for the rich. Those are things that some of which we have been arguing. For example, we are now having, I can talk about my own situation as minister in my deployment. You have got students who come from the lower middle class, who do not qualify for student assistance by NSFAS, by government. Yet they come from families who are not rich enough, for instance, to afford university education. One of the arguments the Communist Party has been making, pass laws, enforce that, for example, of the so much liquid cash that our banks have, put aside 5%, 10% to actually create an affordable education loan scheme for lower middle class parents to be able to educate and support their own children. There is nothing which stops us. Even the apartheid regime, an evil regime like apartheid, in pursuing its agenda, what did it say? Prescribed asset. Banks and other corporations must set aside so much money. That's how ISCO was built. That's how ESCOM was built. That's how Transnet was actually being built. Those are some of the things that we are arguing for, that even other capitalist countries, they actually do that. And we, as the SACP, we are engaging all the time with the ANC. Some of the things we've won. We had a huge and very successful campaign study on the transformation of the financial sector. Till today, we are being proven right about that campaign. Look at the 200 billion rands that government had set aside to actually support small and medium enterprises for guarantees. That money, less than 70 billion rands or 80 billion rands was actually spent. Because the private banks do not know how to support small enterprises. We should have been stronger as government to put in additional measures so that the private sector must know that we have got a population of close to 60 million people. A huge percentage of it are actually victims of poverty, inequality, and unemployment.
So, Minister, I just want to jump in on another topic. So I hear what you're saying is that the private sector can be involved with government, but they need to know that government is guiding the process. I have to speak to you about higher education. COVID-19 has just been so incredibly disruptive, but also we've seen the fee protests. I know that you set up a task team to try and come up with a long-term solution to issues such as historical debt and why some of these kids in the missing middle keep getting left out. I want to know, first of all, whether this academic year for higher education students is going to proceed smoothly and peacefully from now on. Are you satisfied that the issues that had the kids out on the streets, the students out on the streets, is resolved for this year at least?
I'm very confident that we're going to have not an easy year because COVID-19 is still with us, but that it's going to be a better year. Already, Sally, I'm very pleased, and I must thank all the stakeholders that we managed to finish the 2020 academic year, despite the huge challenge we had in relation to COVID-19. All our colleges, all our universities have been able to write exams and finish, and they've started the new academic year. We need to then learn lessons out of that. How do we able to move forward? I'm confident that this is actually going to be a better year. Firstly, government has actually achieved part of its deal that children from the poor and the working class in my portfolio who go to universities and colleges are getting the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. All of them, those who have been admitted and who qualify. That's very important. That should actually contribute, and that has contributed to even overcome the challenges that we normally have at the beginning of each year. Now, Cabinet has said to me, these are the students who fall by the wayside, like what we call the missing middle. Come with a comprehensive, firstly, even NSFAS, we need to review NSFAS, is it functioning optimally? But also, let's look at other categories of student funding, the missing middle and postgraduate students. And I'm going to be presenting a set of proposals before the end of June, before Cabinet. And I hope that will help us, at the very least in the immediate term, to lay the basis to have a better start, to have a better finish to the year, and a better start to next year, and then lay a basis for a more medium to longer term solution on what we do need to do in order to address student funding. But also, the other matter which I was addressing incidentally in the portfolio committee today is that the pressures that we are having on our universities will never stop until we actually expand significantly the technical and vocational education and training system, which is another major issue that I am focusing on at the moment, that we focus on strengthening and building a larger, more relevant TVET college sector that also produces work-ready students.
We have
now,
seen
what
a lot
is
of
also
those
important is that...
Sorry, carry on.
Yes? No, I was saying what is key is for stakeholders to work together, especially at institutional level. SRCs and management and worker representatives all the time to be able to work together to look at all the challenges and find solutions, whether it's the threat of COVID-19, whether it's other threats to stability and other matters that actually needs to be negotiated at that level. That is what is critical, and I am confident that with this kind of policy framework that government is having and is also developing, that does lay a very strong basis for a successful 2021 academic year.
Thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate it. That was Higher Education, Science and Technology Minister Dr. Blade Nzimande.